Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior. Did you have your air guitars out there? I don't know. I mean, I had that intro music done years ago, but there's 7 layers of music. I grew up as a kid liking heavy metal. Go figure. It's in there somewhere. Really excited, and thanks for being here today. Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. Hey, listen, we are on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and X, formerly Twitter. And what are we doing here? We're doing live streaming, the next generation of broadcasting. That means you're peeking in the studio as we do this interview with our guest. And what we'll be doing is producing it and releasing it as a international podcast. We're on all the channels, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart. I'm getting tired just reminding myself of all those. And there'll be a YouTube premiere video, which is really popular for most of the audience that we have today. We're going to be talking about a lot of things today, including a new book that my brain went through this book and I got stuck over and over again going back to it. I think you'll really enjoy that. Dr. Amelia Kelley, the doctor's in the house. She's a trauma-informed therapist, author, co-host of the Sensitivity Doctors podcast, researcher, certified meditation and yoga instructor. Now, she's got a lot of specialties, which I'm impressed by: art therapy, internal family systems, something called EMDR, which maybe she'll tell us about. And then this one, does this make your brain think? Brain spotting. Her work focuses on women's issues, empowering survivors of abuse and relationship trauma, highly sensitive persons. I think I'm one of those. Motivation, healthy living, neurodiversity, and adult ADHD. Now, she does a lot of work as a professor of psychology at Yorkville University, and she's been recognized as an expert on SiriusXM, the Dr. Radio's The Psychiatry Show. Her private practice, and I'm interested in this, and she'll tell us about it, I'm sure. It's part of the Traumatic Stress Research Consortium at the Kinsey Institute. She's also an author. Now, the book we're going to talk about today is called Surviving Suicidal Ideation. It just came out a few months ago, but she's done other work as well, Powered by ADHD, Gaslighting Recovery for Women, and she's a co-author of What I Wish I Knew. So much more. Maybe we'll have her back talk about some of those. She resides in Raleigh, North Carolina now. Welcome to the show, Dr. Kelley.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. You're a busy lady. I know that you have a practice in patients. Now, you're in North Carolina. Tell us the weather. What's going on in North Carolina today?
I actually just walked with my last client. So it's hot and steamy. We just got a ridiculous storm last night. So it's kind of when all the fog is coming up from the pavement. We've got that weather energy happening right now.
Weather energy it is. Over here on Metro Vancouver, West Coast Canada, British Columbia, truly international connection here. We've got similar weather, but it's been crazy. The world weather patterns are changing. There's no question.
Mm-hmm.
Well, listen, would you like to go into Plato's garden and have a conversation?
Sure.
Okay.
What would you do if I said no?
She's probably saying, what is he doing here? Plato's garden? All right. If you're on the podcast, you can't see Plato's garden, but it's there. Welcome to Plato's garden, everybody. Now, if you're not familiar with Plato's garden, Dr. Kelley, you're an educated lady. I was invited to do a doctoral degree of my second year now at Middlesex University in London.
I've been there. I went to school there.
Oh, my goodness. That's what storytelling's about. Now I'm more excited.
Yeah. I'm excited to talk about that.
That is very cool. Now, here's the thing, and I'm getting away from Plato's explanation here for a minute, but when I was close to being accepted, I did a Zoom with them, and the professor was in his home in a big chair with lots of books behind him. And I said, do you know where Tidworth, Hampshire is? There's a military base. And he leaned over and he pointed. He said, it's about 7 miles from my house. And that's where I was born. My dad was in the military. I've never been back to the UK. So if I graduate, and knock on wood, I hope I do, it'll be my homecoming. Thank you. When I got accepted, here's what I learned. I learned that human beings don't do something very well, and it's called critical thinking. Now, let me explain what that is. Critical thinking is where we invite people on the show and we say, let's have a conversation. And a lot of people coming on, Dr. Kelley, like to talk about just one thing, their profession or how their accomplishments. But critical thinking is talking about more than that and then finding the deeper meaning by critically thinking about all those thoughts. And that's what we're going to do today in Plato's Garden. So let me tell you what's on the screen. Plato was an Athenian philosopher, everyone, during the classical period in ancient Greece, founder of the Platonist school of thought and the academy, from the word academia, the first institution apparently of higher learning in the Western world. I'm going to change the screen slide here. So there's something called influences of context. So there's three areas, Dr. Kelley. I'm just going to touch on them. The first one is called macro. So let's say in your world, what was happening in the world around you that influenced your public work? When you started developing your public agency, we could say it's being a media person, being an author, being a therapist. What was going on in the global world? Number two is meso. What was happening in your industry or the sector you were in that influenced your public work? And three is micro, and this is my favorite. This is like what was happening in your personal life that may have influenced your public work. So on that note, to get us going, I'm going to throw a question out there, and we're just going to riff on it. It's about storytelling.
Okay.
So you ready? Here we go.
Ready.
This one sort of touches, I think, on the micro, and I've called this personal journey from setbacks to triumphs. So, Dr. Kelley, I know your life has had its share of hurdles. You wrote to me on that. Being waitlisted for your degree, overcoming fertility challenges, and creating a family, even launching your own practice after parting ways with another organization. So take us back to the moment when you felt like the odds were stacked against you. Tell us the story of how you found the courage to keep going. Go back even as far as early days, the childhood days.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, so if I go all the way back, I mean, I'm going back to before I was alive, honestly. I am the product of generational trauma. On my mother's side, my family had a tumultuous story in the Ukraine. And that story that existed before I was alive definitely impacted the family that I got to know as a child. And as a highly sensitive person, which we should certainly unpack, I think I absorbed a lot of their traumas without it being directed at me necessarily. I could always kind of feel this insidious thing that was present, and I never really could put my finger on it. And what we know about highly sensitive people, and especially children, is that when they don't have answers, they'll start formulating answers to fill in the blanks. And that's usually a precursor to, high functioning anxiety, if you think about it. And so
no, just for the sake of the audience, because that's jargon, and
Yeah.
I think I understand what is high functioning anxiety, and then keep going. It's an awesome story.
So when we think about clinical anxiety, usually it interferes with someone's wellness and ability to perform certain things in their life. Maybe
Yeah.
it keeps them from public speaking, or it prevents them from making close connections because of social anxiety. But high functioning anxiety, which is often connected to neurodiversity as well, it doesn't look the same. It usually looks like someone who is very successful, or someone who has the answers, or is able to overcome and triumph. So it can look very appealing. It's the things we celebrate in our society. But internally, it can cause a great deal of dread and unrest, and, an inability to stay in the moment at times.
Yeah.
And, I think when you take a role as like a helper and a healer so early in your life, it follows you. And so, you were talking about macro. I initially was going to be a graphic artist. That was my first, what I was going to school for. I dabbled in, I think it was communications, because I was like, maybe I'll be on the news or something. I think I always had this desire to speak to people on a bigger level.
Is that like somebody who makes graphs, like spreadsheets and charts, or it's probably more creative than that, right?
Oh no! So graphic artists are who made your logo.
Now that's cool. See, so you got other skills I don't have.
Yeah, well, and I actually interned at MTV in the art department at the time where TRL was still a thing. if
Yeah.
you remember Total Request Live. So I got to meet a lot of famous movie stars and music stars, which was kind of fun. But so I had this opportunity that on an external surface level looked really cool. Like, oh, I can go work for MTV and have this glamorous life, but something felt like it was missing.
Yeah.
And then macro level 9/11 happened. And I remember seeing, and I'm from upstate New York. I remember, and I have family and friends who were directly impacted. I remember seeing a documentary, like a little episode about an art therapist who was working with child survivors of parents who had been lost in the towers. And it was like one of those like giant light bulb moments. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's why I got waitlisted, because I applied everywhere super late. Like, I had no business applying for these graduate programs when I did, but I felt pulled and called, like, I have to do this. So I think it was a combination of, the macro, but on the micro level, like you were saying, having kind of always taken that role of what does everyone need? Is everyone okay? How's everyone doing? Why are people feeling the way they're feeling so early in life?
Yeah.
Kind of led to this field and this career.
It's amazing. Hey, we're going to just riff back and forth because the show's about storytelling. Everybody, when Dr. Kelley says something, I want you to see where your brain's going. I'm going in many directions here. Before I say what I wanted to say, you got a book there. Let's hold it up and read the title out to us.
Sure. So here we are. My lighting. There we go. Surviving Suicidal Ideation, from Therapy to Spirituality and Lived Experience. Oh, they're having a book hangout.
I always go, no, I got one. And by the way, if you go through mine, it's all marked up and all. I got to give a plug for this book. I mean, it's a hefty book, and it's actually got gloss paper. I got a surprise. I'll talk about it more later, but this book has a lot in it, and we're going to weave it into the story. There's so many interesting things that I heard from you, upstate New York, 9/11, graphic artist. It's really interesting because in that little bumper I played for Plato's Garden, you wouldn't know this, but there's an image of a acrylic painting, and the acrylic painting is supposed to be of the brain and neurons working together like they're throwing up on an image. That was my first acrylic painting, and I did that months ago. Many of my followers know, and I think you know, that I had a brain injury in 2018. And so this thing you said about creativity, I've had those spark moments. For example, I manage depression. I have generalized anxiety. I'm a functioning CEO from industry. And I just discovered later in life, after my brain injury in 18, Dr. Kelley, that some of these other things needed attention. You and I had an interesting experience where I had to bump the show to today from yesterday. And I was really praying on this because I'm a faith-based man. Do I want to reveal this? And I will, because that's why I have you here. That in the past I would have lied and made an excuse about something. But the truth is, I was reading your book, and I have some visual challenges which cause a lot of fatigue. But the part I didn't tell you, and why I think this is such a great conversation, and I know when you take it back, you can comment on what I'm saying here. When I was in working for somebody else, I would never feel comfortable saying what I'm going to tell you because you get judged, there's stigma, etc. Especially, I think I'm one of those high functioning anxiety people. So yesterday, the day before yesterday, I had this exchange through a social media app with a friend, and they said something to me that triggered me. And I've been studying your book and things in the last 6-8 months. I think I have possibly need to do some work on PTSD from my childhood trauma, and I've never dealt with that. So what happened was I didn't sleep all night, and it just beat me up internally. And so the next morning I got up, I had the symptoms of my eyes, but then I couldn't explain that. So my first thing was, I want to do the best show possible. But why don't we move the show if you'll do it? And then here we are. We can talk about that because now I can relate to you. So I wanted to share that with you and ask one more thing, that if you go back, and you can comment on that for sure, take it back from me and just talk about your childhood too. So your parents and the nurturing, I think your grandparents, you had that generational trauma. It was Ukrainian grandparents. Just talk about that so we understand what you mean by that, and how were you raised? How did that shape you?
So, in a way, my parents kind of externally did the very best that they could. I mean, I think in a lot of ways I was safe. I wasn't criticized. I had a lot of the positive experiences that we would want for a child. So I wouldn't say I'm high on the ACE scale, if you know what I mean, the adverse childhood
Yeah.
experiences scale. Um, some of the more kind of traumatic experiences within my family actually came when I was an adult. When my parents divorced, there was some, issues with my mom's mental health, and there were things that it was almost like a ticking time bomb. Like everything was being compressed and held together
Yeah.
in my childhood in a way that was held together for me and my brother's sake. And then once we started to, as many people often do, once we were leaving and flying and going and doing our own things, then everything kind of unraveled. And so I think it was, in a weird way, it was kind of like, oh, I always knew this was here, but I didn't know how to put my finger on it. And, um, you know, absorbing your parents' anxiety and your parents' own trauma can lead to. I think I had someone on my podcast, Bloom Post. She's a shaman out of Asheville, and I love her. Love you, Bloom. And she talked about how highly sensitive people are born because it is a genetic, trait.
Yeah.
But empaths are made.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. And I really related to that because I think I had the genetic makeup
Yeah.
to absorb people's pain and to absorb people's illnesses. But the situations that I was in kind of created, I almost got reinforcement, kind of like, oh, because I was able to make sure everyone was okay, this worked out well. So I'm going to keep doing that because then people feel more safe and people feel more centered. And so it creates this illusion that you can hold everyone and everything around you together.
Interesting. Hey, we're live and we got a chat coming in here, so I'm just going to put some on screen here. Shout out to Gabe Leal on LinkedIn. It says, great look at that. Both of you have a copy of the book. Thanks. Hey, and by the way, Gabe, I'm going to challenge you to go out and get that book, man. That'd be awesome. So thank you. Everyone, put your comments and questions and we'll get them on screen for Dr. Kelley. I want to take us in a turn now. So I think we know you pretty well. And I have a piece of paper I'm looking at here. I always ask guests like Dr. Kelley, I said, why are you a fit for the show? And there were some things you wrote here. And there was that one line, too much or too emotional. I think you wrote here, living in the world as a highly sensitive person who has been called too much or too emotional. So I want to say thank you for that because you're appealing to my story, but it also triggered that several months ago I do executive coaching and I had a fella in the studio or on Zoom and he says his wife keeps referring to him as you're too much. And so this is a book I'm going to reach out and going to say, you should take a look at this because I don't think people really understand that. One more thing from me is I had somebody say to me very close to me, well, that you're too sensitive. That's not my problem. Those are your emotions. And I learned through my own healing and CBT, cognitive behavioral skills I learned, and you're the expert. So thank you. But I think you're onto something here, which you already know, that there are millions of people out there who just feel misunderstood. And so reading your book, getting in touch with someone like you could really change life. Are you having fun in Plato's Garden?
Yes.
Okay, good. Fun is a good thing. So we're going to take you through a second question out there. This one I think touches on Mezzo, which is that sector, and I'll call this sector-specific impact, building your private practice. So Dr. Kelley, you've built a private practice centered on trauma therapy, empowering women, which I felt was significant, which is now part of the Kinsey Institute's Traumatic Stress Research Consortium. So what was the turning point in your career that made you realize this was the work you're meant to do, especially given your personal history and stories from family trauma, but particularly women, for women? And then comment on this because I, through my brain injury, did psychiatry and several group therapies and all these things. One of the things that really disturbed me was in the groups and things, there's not as many men. And I don't know if that has to do with something with ego or fear. So just comment on that and to get into that question.
I'd love to. So first of all, I just want to relate to you when you mentioned about the traumatic brain injury and how much that can impact your life. My husband was hit by a drunk driver 4 years ago at the
Oh my God.
right before he's alive, but right before,
Thank God.
yeah, right before COVID, and when I was 13 weeks pregnant, and he suffered a traumatic brain injury, and so uh, the healing and the work that he's had to do, the very pointed work that he's had to do, the impact it's had on our life and our relationship is profound, and it's not always good impact. And so I just recognize that I'm glad that you set that boundary when you weren't able to sleep, because I would prefer, you feel in your body and you feel like
Yeah.
centered in that when we got to get together. So I appreciate your
Thank you.
honesty on that. Um, and I also want to ask you if you've ever done neurofeedback, but that's a whole nother topic.
Well,
Um,
let me just jump in now. I don't want to
yeah,
get you off that topic.
yeah.
So the power of storytelling, right? Here I say something, and I'm so glad your husband is okay.
Mhm.
My accident was falling on my head in a bathtub and cracking the tub. I was doing a
Ooh.
two day ride for cancer fundraising, fell
Mhm.
backwards at 185 pounds and literally split the tub. I probably shouldn't be here. I
Oh
couldn't
my
walk straight.
gosh.
I couldn't talk properly. I had latency of thought. I still have double vision a bit, and light sensitivity is
Mhm.
crazy.
Mm.
However, what you said was really important, and everybody listen to this teaching moment from Dr. Kelley that I'll say it this way: the people who walk alongside people with mental illness or MBTIs like me and your husband who have related, they're impacted significantly, and we don't always know that. My wife and I,
Mhm.
through the 5 years where most of my recovery was and was heavy lifting, we really crossed some tough bridges. There was one point, and she doesn't mind me saying this because I talked about it with her, where I didn't know if I wanted to be here in her life. We were at
Mhm.
odds so much because she saw a shell of a man and her impatience sometimes. So I took a course called therapy through my psychiatrist called RPT, which was
Mhm.
relationship or something like that therapy,
Mhm.
where I actually had to go into a room and there was all these women and say what my two goals were for my relationships. And one was
Oh
a
wow.
better relationship with my wife, and the second relationship with my daughter who's in university back east, and I miss her. She was a
Mm.
rock in my life. So thank you for that. So I'll give it back to you. Just continue with that into that question if you can about building the
Sure.
practice and women.
Sure. So, I started, I think similar to some younger therapists where I just was interested in just people in general, family. Being younger, I was very young when I started working as a therapist. I think I was 23. I was fully licensed and raring to go at 23. And so I was working, my first job ever was actually in a boot camp where boys were sent when they weren't, doing well in their home environments. So that was like a crash course.
Oh, I was going to say, there's your first course.
Yeah, and, I just remember having a vivid moment of me telling a grown woman how to parent her child, and here I am sitting barely older than that child she's parenting, and, that was one of those, "Ooh, I need some time to get well seasoned here."
And you
Um,
probably, let me guess, you didn't have a child at the time?
no, no,
Don't you love
definitely.
people who give advice and then you go, tell me how
Mhm.
that worked out with your child?
I mean, it was coming from the right place, but I was definitely pretty green. But so, I questioned my choice going into the field for a while because I think I kept putting myself in these really hard environments like boot camps, and I was in a gang recovery program. I was
Mm.
in all these different settings where I didn't have control over the environment. I was just kind of whisked away by public funding. And then I landed at the methadone clinic. And that was, other than my practice, which I have opened, my favorite job I've ever had in this field. And it was where I first really got introduced to like what true trauma therapy looks like. And that was at the very same time that my husband and I were trying to have our first child. And we suffered multiple miscarriages, a molar pregnancy, which, if people don't know what that is, it's very traumatizing.
I'm sorry to
Um,
hear that.
and I appreciate that, but I think also there was this intersection of working at the methadone clinic, having my own traumas, realizing trauma might be why I wanted to be a therapist in the first place, and then landing in a training for EMDR. And so it was like all these things met together to create this perfect recipe for me finally seeing like, this is my purpose in my work. And I think I was probably 8 years into it at that point. Like I had some time under my
Yeah.
belt, but
EMDR is in the book, but just what's the acronym
yeah.
stand for?
So eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Oh, wow.
And it is an alternate form of therapy. And I don't want to say alternate, it's actually quite empirically, meaning well researched. It's the gold standard currently for treating trauma, along with trauma focused therapy, trauma focused CBT, and brain spotting. But EMDR looks at the way that we process memories, as trauma memories are not linearly stored. They're not just like this pretty story that we can sit and recount in an organized way. And then because we've unpacked it, it makes sense and it moves on. It stays so much more stored in our bodies, and it is so much more disorganized than we think. And this disorganization is part of why it's hard to comprehend, understand, and complete a trauma cycle. And so, and a trauma cycle, Levine, who is amazing, and I got to interview on my own podcast. I felt like it was like a pinch me moment. Peter Levine, who created somatic experiencing therapy, had talked about the completion of a trauma cycle. We go up to jump off of a diving board, right? You're standing up there. You've got like the pre-trauma symptoms. Your stomach may flip. You're feeling a little tense. You stand at the edge and you jump. And when you're jumping and you're out in the air, you're actually in trauma. Like you're in this moment where you could get hurt. You cut through the water, you resurface, and that moment where you come up for air and you're safe is the completion of the trauma cycle.
Wow.
But what happens with many of our traumas, whether it be because we're a child and we don't have agency over what happens to us, or we are, a battered partner, or we are, in war, or we are someone who doesn't have control over their own fertility, we don't get to complete these trauma cycles. We are often stuck in them. And so EMDR helps through bilateral stimulation using things like sound, and I use these little like vibration paddles, called TheraTappers. It allows the therapist to bring you into the moment that these things are being felt, but in a safe way, so that you can reorganize them and maybe sometimes even change your cognitions around them. And I remember when I learned how to do it, I processed the first miscarriage, like the moment I found out about the miscarriage when I was in the office. And before doing EMDR, it felt very front of my mind. Like I could almost feel like, you well up, you get tight, that throat feeling. But after doing EMDR, it's like the memory got kind of gently moved to the back in a file where I can open it, I can look at it, I can handle it, but it's not like overcoming my body.
Yeah, that's amazing. EMDR, everyone. We're here with Dr. Amelia Kelley. Hold up that book again that you've just wrote. You have a co-author as well.
Yes, Gina Cavalier. I want to help you before you see her. You made her sound very exotic, though.
Yeah, I think I'll change it up. I'm part Fijian, so I might put a little accent on that.
What did you say, Cavalier? I don't know. It sounded exotic, though.
She's very cavalier. Yeah, so surviving suicidal ideation. So we're still in Plato's Garden, everyone, just riffing. And you're getting a sense to see Dr. Amelia from different sides, personally, how she was shaped. I really like your story. There's so much in that little bit you've shared with us that makes me go, man, okay, I wonder how you sit in a room with people who have mental illness and stay, I think they call it secondary trauma, but stay so vibrant and healthy. So we'll get into that in a minute, but let's take a turn before we get into the next area of question about the book. So the title, Surviving Suicidal Ideation, is very provocative, of course, caught my attention. And I wanted to ask you to tell us, why did you write the book? You do have Cavalier, Gina, your co-author, which she'll be on next week with us. But why did you write it?
So I was actually on her podcast, which she no longer does anymore. But after she reached out to me, I think she's very spiritually driven, spiritually grounded. She's very in touch with energy. And so she felt called to call me and ask if I would partner on this with her. It's been an idea or a passion project for her to share her story of survival, because She is a survivor of suicidal ideation. I was initially on her podcast because I was talking about What I Wish I Knew, Surviving and Thriving After an Abusive Relationship, which is my first book. Like such a labor of love, that book. Kendall Ann Combs and I wrote it together, and it was her story of getting out of an abusive relationship. It's funny, it's almost one of my favorite books I wrote because it was like the first, and because it was our baby. And I think Gina could tell my passion for telling other people's stories, and she just asked if I'd be interested. Now, I've had, family history of individuals who had overcome suicidal ideation. I've had clients who have had this issue. I've lost a client before to this this plight. I've been in it, in my work, but I have to say, I jokingly call myself like a method writer.
Yeah.
Like people who are method actors will kind of entrench themselves in a topic so that they can, act. That's what I do when I write. So anytime I'm going to be writing about a topic, I will immerse myself in it. And I immersed in this so deep that I started to kind of lose myself in the topic. And it was impacting, my mental health for a period of time. And I had to kind of had these really great conversations around boundary setting and taking care of myself while writing this book. But it was, I just was so in alignment with what she wanted to get out into the world, because I believe so strongly we do not talk about suicide enough.
Of course.
Just like fertility, for instance, I think in the last 10 years, we've done better with talking about how common miscarriages, with talking about, rainbow babies and the 1 in 3 and all these things that are more common. And, we don't shame someone for bringing up that they're pregnant before 12 weeks. At least I hope we don't. I think that 20 years ago, it was a very different story. And I hope we can see a similar thing happen for suicidal ideation, because suicidal ideation is more common than we think. It happens at minimum. About 15% of the population will have these feelings in their lifetime. And this is only what's reported.
I mean, that's crazy. I think the stigma plays in. People just don't talk about it.
Right.
We're here with Dr. Amelia Kelley. Dr. Kelley, I just want to jump in and riff with you, and then you can keep going on that. Thank you so much. I mean, this is a heavy topic. And look, our brains, when we hear the word suicidal ideation, it can be scary. I mean, the cortisol's flooding through my veins and fear. But the stigma is pretty big. I'm looking at the book in front of me here, your book, and part 1 is the what of suicidal ideation. So without regurgitating the whole book, just define what it is, and then there's some phases that people can get the book and read about it. But I also want to share my story of that as well with you once you've done that.
Sure. So, suicidal ideation is, I think it's important to notice that it does happen in different intensities and phases. So having a passing thought of what would it be like if I died, that's a normal, regular, and I don't want to say normal, I hate that word. That's a regular thinking pattern that many of us might contemplate. Sometimes we even think about things we're afraid of happening. That's something I think is really neat for people to know. If you ever have a fear, if you ever think about something like you have a baby and you think like, what if I dropped the baby? Some people might say, oh, what is wrong with me for thinking that? But know that our brain is very unique. We often will think of the thing we are afraid of happening.
That's
in
interesting.
our right as we imagine it. So if you catch yourself having these kind of catastrophic thoughts, just remember it's a way of you processing fear. So we all will tend to have that around death. But when it becomes something such as suicidal ideation, it's the contemplation of ending or unliving yourself for a variety of reasons. And it could be, and this is what we really touched on, there's a strong connection between suicidal ideation and depression, certainly, but that is not the only reason that people experience these thoughts. It can span things from chronic pain, chronic poverty, traumatic brain injury is actually a huge connection. Have you seen the new, there's new legislature out that they're going to be increasing the protective measures they're taking in the military to keep track of TBIs and also change some of the equipment they're using
Yeah.
to make sure they can measure the impact of blasts, because what they're finding was a dramatic increase in suicidality for the veterans who are coming back in most recent
Absolutely.
wars with TBIs.
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes. Just
Mhm.
a connecting thought went to that movie Concussion with Will Smith and the whole NFL situation.
Yep.
I've had a couple pro ball players on here. One's a good friend who actually had an
Mhm.
MBTI, but this whole
Mhm.
thing and the education part is really important.
Absolutely. And so, the thing of it is that with suicidal ideation, it's important to know that if someone is experiencing the thoughts of unaliving themselves or killing themselves, or the contemplation of what would the world be better off without me? Would people feel less burdened without all my problems? It's a means to an end of suffering. And unfortunately, it can become a coping mechanism. That's one thing I don't think people understand. Suicidal ideation can become the only thing that someone feels they can control in their life. It can become the one thing that's always there for them when things get unbearable.
Yeah.
Like, well, at least I have this. And what we wanted to speak to in this book is that suffering is something that we all experience, and there are ways to meet your suffering that are not suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
And we really want to recognize there's no way to just turn off suffering because we're human. But there are certainly ways to connect with and be with the suffering that can be bearable so that you can see where the healing can come and you can be here that next day. Because statistically, most people who attempt and don't succeed at completion down the road are glad that they didn't.
Interesting. I just want to riff with you. So many thoughts coming into my mind, everybody. This whole topic, suicidal ideation. I kind of simplify it in my mind. It's like having an ideas, thoughts of not basically ending life. I'm also sensitive to stigma, so when people
Mhm.
sometimes say, "Hey, he took his life," I don't like that. There's some other discussion about died by suicide lessons. It's not a criminal event.
Mhm.
I remember when I went through this in my own life because I experienced it from my MBTI, that I fell on my head in the bathtub, as I mentioned, that it wasn't that I wanted to die by suicide. It's that what was going on in my head, the thoughts, I wanted them to stop. And
Mhm.
there was a sense of desperation. And everybody I've talked, and I've had some people on my show, I was going to bring up a YouTube, but I'll just leave that and mention the quick story. A fellow named Mike McCarthy, who's a high-level journalist in the UK. Mike's interviewed almost every prime minister they've had. He's that kind of high-level person. And his son Ross, sadly, died by
Mm.
suicide. And
Mhm.
he came on the show, and we did a powerful show. And it was humanizing because we put up pictures of Ross, and he talked. And this was just fresh 6 months.
Mm.
And I thought that's the part. And you said something so brilliant about sometimes we don't want to, and then you never think about the impact it has on family. But what really stuck with me, and I'll leave that story after this, is that when he talked, it was only 2 minutes. He talked about Ross and he talked about the impact on the family. We put pictures up, and I kind of went in my mind, oh my God, when I was having those thoughts, I
Mhm.
never thought about that, about the impact it'll have on other people in my life
Mm.
and those that I leave behind. So thank you for bringing that nugget. So what happened with me is everybody, I'm just going to throw it out there. My first suicidal ideation, I actually did a TED Talk in February 2020. That was while I was still very injured, and I forced myself because I wanted to tell stories. You can find it online. I acted out my suicidal ideation in the first 2 minutes of my TED Talk. And
Mm.
I was driving to do a corporate training event because I'm a corporate business trainer from industry. I was a CEO. And I zoned out in my car. It was winter. I zoned out. There was lots of trees in the highway. Driving to a credit union to do a full training for a half day. And I thought about basically wanting to go into the woods. I envisioned myself lying down and wolves tearing me apart. And I felt this sense of peace, and I wanted to stay asleep. It was
Mm.
quite something. I woke
Mm.
up. I came from that thought. Here I am driving. My brain zoned out. And I got myself out of it, and I was stunned. And I remember I drove and I did that 5-hour training. And the CEO of
Wow.
the company in the room looked at me after, because he knew me, and he said, "Are you okay, Tom?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You just were somewhere else." So I ignored it. And then it happened again. This, I won't get into the nitty gritty because it's painful. But I had a thought of my daughter, harm to my daughter, who's in New Brunswick, the other side of the country, harming herself. And then I saw an image of my wife saying, and that's when, and it was about over a year that I said, "Stop being an idiot. Go and talk to your doctor." So I got into psychiatry. And what I didn't realize, and you can clarify for me your thoughts. I thought suicidal ideation was just about me, but they say if you start having thoughts of harm to others, that might be connected. So take it back from me, anything you want to say on what I said, but also the part about the book that talks about myths of suicide. I love that part. It's my favorite part. So let's get into that for a few minutes.
Sure. Yeah, I think understanding the myths might actually save lives. So I'm glad you mentioned that. One of the biggest myths that we need to eradicate is that talking about suicide increases the likelihood that someone will have suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
If anything, it reduces it. And that's what research shows. Opening up the topic and inviting people to talk about the topic makes it
Yeah.
less likely, because it makes it more likely that if and when they are having these intense feelings, they won't isolate and they'll be more likely to talk about them with you.
Interesting.
And this also translates to children. I think that's something I get asked a lot in interviews. When do you bring it up to children?
Yeah.
And yes, when. So first and foremost, as early as they introduce it. So if ever you have a child come to you and ask you any questions, or if they know someone who's struggling with suicidal thoughts, be honest, be clear, do not sugarcoat it. Because remember what I was saying earlier about highly sensitive children, and really children in general, if they don't get the answers, they will fill in the blanks. And we don't want them filling in the blanks on a topic like suicide. But for as far as what the research shows, by middle school, especially middle and high school, you want to be prompting the conversation. Middle childhood years, such as like elementary age years, you want to be, it's more so following their lead if they bring up the topic.
Yeah.
But really it can be as early as middle childhood, in their elementary age. Have you ever thought of hurting yourself, or have you ever had, really bad thoughts that you feel you don't want to share with people? Or what do you think about if someone gets hurt or wants to hurt them? So you can kind of child friendly bring up these topics. But if someone is coming to you and talking about it, it's better than if they're not. So that's a myth that we have to just completely eradicate.
Absolutely.
Yes. Another myth is the burden myth. That one's more directed at the person experiencing it. Feeling like you are a burden is one of the most common thinking patterns of people who are having these thoughts. And so I want to tell anyone listening or watching this, if you feel like your thoughts are a burden, I encourage you to examine the relationships you're in. Are these safe relationships? And if they are not, seeking out someone maybe outside of your scope. I will say Gina talks about that in her book, where the people that were in her life were not making her feel safe. And she went outside the fringe of who she normally spent time with. She reached out to healers and people who were more interested in things that she was interested in, she felt more seen by. And that's where she found people that did not make her feel like a burden. So it's not your fault if you feel like your feelings are a burden. Instead, I encourage you to examine the relationships.
Yeah, thank you. We'll do another shout out on to Gina, who's going to be on next Tuesday. The part 2 of this interview. Gina's the co-author of the book we're talking about. And what I like about the book, the way it's formatted, just going to give it a plug here, is in the margins of the book, you've got the Gina's initials and your initials, so we could sort of see where the content comes from. But if you just joined us, everyone, with Dr. Amelia Kelley, Dr. Kelley told us earlier that Gina's, to correct me if I'm wrong, but she's experienced suicidal ideation. She's worked her way through it, like I have as a man, and not the same story, obviously. So what I thought was brilliant was having that in the book humanized. It brought it to life. It was you being the expert, and here's somebody, and then she was able to move through it, and that added credibility. It wasn't a talking head book that said do this, do this, do this. It was like
Right.
here's her emotional story. So pretty incredible. Let's get into one other question here. Are you having fun
And
still?
if you don't mind, could I add one thing from earlier?
please do.
You had asked me about working with women primarily.
Yes.
I want to make sure to speak to that. You know how I was saying that my life kind of came to this precipice and I just happened to fall upon trauma work. That's kind of been similar to how the women's work has come. It's kind of like these experiences have come that have led me to working with trauma and abuse relationships and domestic violence. And for that reason, there's a lot of women that reach out to me and that I work with, and I feel very passionate about working in that area. And I also feel deep passion that if we don't address the needs of highly sensitive men and empathic men and traumatized men, we're not actually serving the women either. And
Yes.
so,
Thank you.
yes. So I just want to put that out there that, like, especially this book for sure.
Yeah.
And we were very specific to keep it gender neutral. If you notice, with Gina's beautiful illustrations.
Now
in the
I
book.
Now I see that, and I thank you for saying that, because I didn't get that. So everyone, this is a teaching moment on the show, and we've got a lot of people watching now live, by the way. So another shout out to those who are listening or watching. If you're on your device, put a question out, or even just an acknowledgement. There's something here in the chat from I think it's Jacques Marquez or Jackie Marquez. Where can I find your TED Talk? I want to honor and be sensitive to Dr. Kelley. It's not about me. But my TED Talk was called How Leaders Can Lift the Stigma of Mental Health or Mental Illness. And just Google Tom Dutta TED Talk and you'll see it. And thank you for asking me that. This is really interesting, by the way, because I've had this chip on my shoulder because I went into these therapies for my own recovery. So I'm just going to put it out there. I said in my talk that I gave that you got to get a checkup from the neck up. And as a high level leader myself, and now what I do with my agency to teach, I think everybody should have a psychiatrist or a therapist in their care team.
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
We got to make physical and mental health come together as one. That's the culture change I want to see. So I have Dr. Ron, my psychiatrist, and I see him once a month. And I show up with my little paper of the 50 things that I've ruminated on where I can work through it. It's been life-changing, but in those sessions, I can talk about everything, including issues I might be having in my marriage, etc. The second thing I want to talk about is women, because I want you to help the men out there. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's we're afraid to sit in a room with a strange woman and share our
A strange woman.
A strange. Hopefully, it's a strange. Yeah, sorry, that didn't come out right, did it? With a woman, I'd be comfortable sitting in a room with you talking. But there's a lot of people, and when I first did counseling, I wasn't, because there's a lady sitting in a room. I didn't know her. She put her head down and she just made notes, and then would hand me a paper saying, "Go do this, set some goals, etc." So I terminated that relationship. It just wasn't helpful.
Yeah, that sounds very disconnected.
Exactly. But I know what you're doing is a next level. So they have me now on a wait list to get into do some things. That one thing you said about neuro something or other.
Oh, neurofeedback.
Yeah. I've spent a lifetime, everybody, developing my own mental health, and I was forced to do it because I lost a lot in my life at certain points. But now we've come to a point where we realize it's time to look at PTSD, that there's thoughts that keep playing. So I can be sitting here and talking to Dr. Kelley, and you could say something in a way that it triggers me to remember something that happened in my youth, because I had a traumatic childhood. It's crazy. And I used to be in boardrooms and meetings with business people, and the person talking to me would make me feel like I was melting into an emotional puddle. I ignored it all my life, but I'm so proud to tell you that I'm finally going into that, and it's scary. But the therapist that I have is a woman, and I'm a little bit nervous about it. I don't know why. So give us this, to all the men out there, whatever you want to say to make them feel comfortable and encourage them to go find their way into some type of a program if they need to just do a little bit of learning some skills and things.
Well, I think at the forefront, I want to remind people that emotions are not gendered. Okay. So sadness is not gendered. Grief, anxiety, these are not feminine emotions. They are human emotions. And if we say that only women, feel these things and need to work through these things, we're dishonoring the humanness of all of us.
Yeah.
I think we're working to disentangle. When I hear the term toxic masculinity, I actually think of that less about the person and more about an overarching idea of how men should behave and how men should act. And
Wow.
in all honesty, the way that I'm raising my son is feelings first. In
That's cool.
empowering, and the way I expect my husband to raise our son is feelings first.
Mm.
And so I'm hopeful that as we shift towards this model of this societal model for boys, that maybe, just maybe, we'll see less things like the domestic violence and the abuse that we are constantly trying to eradicate from our society. This is not this we have to stop separating it. It's everyone.
Absolutely.
Everyone
Totally.
deserves therapy. And I could not agree with you more. When folks leave my office for the last time, I tell them, it was great working with you. I will always be your therapist. I'm always yours. Just because you're being discharged today and we're done doesn't mean I'm not yours. So if you ever have a life trauma, give me a call. I'll see if I can get you in. I want them to know they've got that.
Well, that is wonderful. Everybody, Dr. Amelia Kelley, right there, teaching moment. Guys, listen to that part of the show again. The thing is, too, is from industry where I was a functioning CEO, being paid as a CEO for much of my career, I worked with a lot of toxic people, especially toxic bosses. And a lot of men particularly had blind spots. There is a correlation between blind spots and things like generational trauma. So as a guy growing up in a toxic childhood, it was an alcoholic relation, my father, and a very abusive. And my dad left home when I was 12 and all that. People know my story. I took that and my amygdala and my brain and everything didn't develop healthy ways to cope with stress into becoming a leader. I climbed the success ladder fast, probably chasing self-worth, not success. But I started running up against not able to have relationships because what I was seeing with people playing back to my brain, it didn't make sense. So then when you start saying in your book about poverty and people coming back from war, they, like me, we navigate the world through our eyes, but what we see on the outside is not what's going on. It has this perception that is because of some of this stuff. So thank you very much for touching and opening that subject. I think what I'm going to do is throw one more thing out, and then we're going to go to something to honor you, because I'm mindful that we could talk forever, but we're already getting close to an hour.
I have to have you on my podcast. Let's get in touch.
Please do. So somebody asked me about the TED Talk. You can just Google it. I just throw it on the screen there for a minute and find it. And by the way, like it so that it'll get shared. So the next thing was just if you could just give us a quick hit on this "you're too much," this sensitivity piece. Just anything at all on that, and then of course everybody get the book, read it, and review it.
Well, I'm so excited that you asked me that at the end. It's a perfect segue because I'm in the middle of shopping for agents for my next book, which is going to be telling the stories of highly sensitive people.
I'll put up my hand to be one of your people, if you want.
Yeah, it's not going to be your regular kind of self-help book where you're just giving the statistics. It's going to be more so about here's what it's like to be highly sensitive, and here's what it looks like through these different stories. So high sensitivity, you had mentioned amygdala, which is part of your limbic system. It's essentially like this center part of the brain, the older part of the brain, the more reptilian part of the brain, that when we are on high alert or hypervigilant, we feel, a little bit more on edge. That part of the brain is more active, genetically predisposed, more active in the highly sensitive person. I am a highly sensitive person, very high HSP, it's called. And you can learn about hsperson.com. Dr. Elaine Aaron, she is like the forefront of the research. On my own website, I do have a scale that you can do as well to find out if you're an HSP. And being a highly sensitive person changes everything about how you experience the world. The good stuff feels better and the bad stuff feels worse. I think that's a good way to put
I
it.
like
And
that.
we
Gotta
could
coin that.
unpack that. We need to get together for like a whole nother hour to unpack HSPs.
That's amazing. It sounds like some kind of a health plan. And I got to get my HSP or a Game Boy PSP or something like that. Anyway, my warped sense of humor coming out. Definitely, we'll do another chat. I think there's so much more. So everybody, with Dr. Amelia Kelley and the book itself, Surviving Suicidal Ideation. I'm going to just brag because I got my copy. If you don't have your copy, you're not like me, so you got to get one. But there's so much in that. I think we touched on so many things I wanted to today, but you have to get the book, everybody. And I'm just going to do a plug for that. That author's work isn't known. You know that, unless people get the book. But you got to read it, and then please go on Amazon, Goodreads.com, post a review because
Please review.
Yeah, what that does is it actually gets the. I know the inside of the publishing industry, being an author, but many people don't know. But the sales reps for all the stores and whatnot look at the book reviews. The publisher says, "Check out Gina's book. She's got 10 new reviews," and it creates a buzz, and the analytics of Amazon get going. So please do that.
And if you don't mind, I do want to say, even if you're not experiencing suicidal thoughts, this book is helpful for any pain and suffering you might be feeling. So the skills shared can apply to any form of suffering as a human that you're feeling.
Yeah, I think it's a reference book that should be on everybody's table. And what I like about it, too, is it's well researched, but there's lots of bonus materials, links and things, resources. It's wonderful. So now that I've bragged about the book, I'm going to do something fun to honor the book. You didn't know you were getting a review of your book, a reveal today, an international review. Well, I'm going to share it right now. We're going to do an Amazon international review for you. How's that?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I'm going to do it again with Gina because she's co-author. But let me just share something on screen here. So just give me a minute. So my... See, it's fun because I have latency. If I look down and up, my double vision comes in, so things don't quite pop up. So it's like,
my twin is here.
Yeah. So I'm going looking for a 5-star review. I see 10 stars. It's like, wait a minute. I've never seen a 10-star. Oh, wait a minute. That's just my eyes. Okay, we're going to add it to the stage. There it is. Okay, so let me just set this up. And then I'm going to scroll through that. And I know it's tiny, but I'm going to read it for the sake of effect. I can confirm it's posted on Amazon. And I think it just got approved, and I'll send you the link to that. So stand by, everybody.
Oh, thank you.
I just got to put something on here. And now, revealing a 5-star review for the amazing book that we've been talking about. So on the screen there, everybody, and I'm going to shift so I can read it myself. It's titled, the review title, A Powerful Authentic Guide for Anyone Navigating Mental Health Challenges, 5 stars. Here we go. As someone with lived experience in mental illness and a deep commitment to public work as an educator and coach, Surviving Suicidal Ideation by Dr. Amelia Kelley and Gina Cavalier, so bad, is a timely and invaluable resource. The authors expertly weave together personal storytelling, professional insight, creating a book that resonates deeply on multiple levels. The book's beautiful cover design and quality feel. It's a hefty paperback with waxy pages, and I kind of joke that when I have my emotional tears, that's a good thing. It adds to its appeal, making it ideal for bedside reading or as a reference book to return often. Both Dr. Kelley as a trauma-informed therapist and Gina as someone who's lived through suicidal ideation bring their unique qualifications and experience to this hybrid educational text and workbook. The margin notes detailing Gina's real-life experiences add an authentic layer that makes the book stand out. You can feel the synergy between the two authors as they balance the personal and professional seamlessly. The book doesn't just educate. It challenges you to think differently about mental health and what healing looks like. One of the aspects I appreciated most is how the book provides actionable mental health strategies with space to reflect and write, encouraging readers to process in their own way. Though, of course, these exercises are best done in consultation with a therapist when needed. Now, I've already said this on the show, everyone, but the myth section is my favorite. No spoilers here, but it debunks common misconceptions about mental health and suicidal ideation in a way that makes you pause and reconsider what you thought you knew. The book doesn't just educate, it challenges you to think differently about mental health and what healing looks like. So whether you're someone living with mental illness or supporting a loved one through their journey, this book offers compassion, tools, roadmap for healing. It's a kind of resource that belongs not just on your bookshelf, but in your hands, ready to use. I highly recommend picking up a copy. Please read it, cover to cover, experience its impact firsthand. And if you've been touched by mental health struggles directly or indirectly, don't hesitate. This book could change lives. And review is me.
Thank you.
So there you go.
That's a beautiful review.
I'm going to give you a round of applause. I'm going to remove that from the screen here. And so as we go to wrap up, and I have one more thing to give you the last word, but there is one more thing here that we want to do, and that is, let's put on something interesting. Nope, I hit the wrong button. I won't get into it, but with my vision, I do hit the wrong button sometimes. And we had this magical moment on another show, and I did something really dumb, and it was so ridiculous. Oh, here it is. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be given an award live on a podcast? Well, here we go. We're going to be acknowledging Dr. Kelley. So I'm going to put on another camera angle here so you can see this. There we go. Okay. This is sort of my action cam, everybody. See what goes on in the studio here. All right. So have you ever heard of challenge coins?
Vaguely, yes. Okay. I think, yeah.
All right. So now you're going to know. So your next time I ask you that, you say, not until you told me, Tom.
Yep.
All right. So challenge coins, I'm going to read this out.
Well, I think through you, maybe. Yeah.
Great answer. So here's a little insert that's going to come with the award. Challenge coins surfaced during the World War I era. The practice of carrying a coin designed specifically for a unit was popular with the Army Special Forces. Carrying the coin at all times and presenting it when challenged to prove affiliation with the unit resulted in a number of consequences for those who could not produce a coin. The most popular required the coinless soldier to buy a round of drinks. That practice actually continues today. Now, these are used in, Special Forces, Alcoholics Anonymous, organizations around the world. So when I started the show, I had one handcrafted, painted, and minted. And so the front of the coin...
that's cool.
Let's just do this. The front of the coin is the image of the show. It's a hefty coin. But the back is the absolutely detailed narrative of the show by Joseph Campbell, the hero's journey narrative of story.
Oh, nice.
And that everybody goes on a journey to discover who they are, comes back as a shaman or guide like Dr. Kelley has, and does something purposeful to impact others' lives. We now have close to 300 of these and 8 billion people on the planet in circulation. But I want to say to you that I only give these out to the 1% of people in the world that can come and tell their good and bad stories, but have turned that into something good to help and change other people's lives. On that note, welcome to the Quiet Warrior community.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yay, you pressed the right button.
I hit the right button. And there's Gina reminding me I hit the right button. And you're absolutely right. So we're going to get that out to you. We'll work that out. And I just want to say to you, we're connected for life.
Yes,
however I can help you to further your mission, I am
and
here.
You too.
And thank you very much. A little shameless plug. I've got a book there about my life story. If you have an opinion on it at some time, please feel free to share that. So my last shout out is a question to you before you wrap up. Tell us where we can get a hold of you and whatnot, but answer this if you can. When you think about your journey, your life's work, and everything you faced, Gina, what is the legacy you hope to leave behind, not just in the field, but in the hearts of the people you've touched? Go.
That it is never the wrong time to share how you feel, because it is always authentically yours to share.
Oh, I love it. That is so profound, everybody. Teaching moment on the show. Go back and listen to it. Watch it again over and over. Share it with your children. Just amazing. Where can we get a hold of you and the book and all that? You probably have some website or something.
Yes. So ameliakelley.com, Kelly with an EY. And I'm very active on Instagram. So you can find me there. Send me questions you have about the book, books. But also, I am in love with doing my podcast. I get to talk to some of the most fun people. So please follow the Sensitivity Doctors. We get to talk to some really cool people and authors and thought leaders. So that's been super fun.
Well, there you have it, everybody. Please check all that out. We'll put it in the show notes. But thank you very much. You are just a blessing to the world.
Thank you. I look forward to talking to you again. I know we will.
I'm always here, and I love you. I love your husband's recovery is underway. So everybody, find that true passion and purpose like you see here from Dr. Amelia Kelley, and find that life and live the life that you deserve and desire. We'll see you all again on the Quiet Warrior Show, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you for listening to The Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca.
Okay, we are just about offline here. If there's anybody still on, I see we had a pretty big audience today. I was blown away by that. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I see you're dropping off. I'm just going to take us offline here, Gina, so stand by. Ending stream.